I'm an attorney based in Schenectady, reachable at area code 518-952-0516. I practice in the areas of criminal and family appeals, and I'm using this video blog as advertising and marketing. Attorney advertising means that prior outcomes never guarantee future results. I like to talk about my work, but I also like to chat with other knowledgeable attorneys. And I invited my friend Peter Tilem, he's an attorney in White Plains, New York, to join us today to tell us about his work. Peter and I have known each other for about 15 years, and we were colleague attorneys downstate in Westchester County. I've relocated recently to the Capital District of New York. So I thought it'd be fun to chat with Peter through the miracle of the internet. Peter, why don't you tell our guests, our audience on the vlog, a little about yourself?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I am an attorney here in Westchester. Actually, you mentioned it. That's where we know each other from. Your work is well regarded down here in Westchester, and I'm sure you're bringing the same quality legal practice up to the Capital District. I've been an attorney in this area for about 20 years. Prior to that, I was in the district attorney's office in Manhattan, where I worked on a variety of very interesting cases. I was on the homicide chart, but I also was assigned to the Firearms Trafficking Bureau, which was a unit that really investigated very deeply into how firearms were being trafficked into New York City. And as part of my job there, I was very involved in traveling to southern states to try to find the source of guns that were illegally entering New York. I spent a lot of time on gun cases. And so here in my practice in Westchester, we do a lot of gun-related cases, a lot of Second Amendment issues, including gun licenses, people charged with gun crimes, and anything that any sort of legal issues that a gun owner or someone with a gun might have.
Well, that's fascinating, Peter. But before we get into the details of your work today, I'm always interested in the business aspect. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been on my own for most of the last 20 years, really, in practice of law. And so I'm curious what prompts someone to go out on their own. You said you started out your career with the district attorney in Manhattan, and then about 20 years ago, it sounds like you took a dive into business for yourself. And you also, it sounds like you switched from being a prosecutor to being a defense lawyer. Tell us what that was like, starting out your career in government and then jumping into private practice and I guess running your own business. What was that for you?
Well, it's a very interesting transition, although it's not as stark as one might believe. You know, what I found out was that I had a lot of great trial experience doing what I did down in the Manhattan DA's office, and that easily translated to going from prosecution to going to the defense. It also easily translated to other areas of law. If you have the credible ability to try a case, you could try a family law case or a criminal law case or a civil case. And so once you develop those skills, and I really had a tremendous opportunity down in Manhattan during the crack epidemic of the 90s, honing my trial skills, then I was able to easily transition to handling all types of litigation here in Westchester County.
So that's a very interesting point. And I have noticed, I have met lots and lots of defense lawyers on the criminal side who started out on the prosecution side. And consistently what I've heard them say is that their vantage point as former prosecutors is stronger because they kind of can anticipate some of what the government is trying to do. And their clients are reassured by that vantage point that they kind of know where the government might be going with a given case. From my own vantage point, having never been a prosecutor in the criminal sense, what I can throw out there is being a family court attorney, you are often adverse to the government. Not always. Family court attorneys obviously handle divorce, but I'm more thinking about in the context of child abuse and neglect. I do specialize in defending parents, and I've also represented children in cases alleging child maltreatment. I've talked about this in my video blog. I have the unique vantage point of having been on both sides. I recently worked for a government agency as a prosecuting attorney in child abuse and child welfare. And that there is nothing more pressure cooker and intense and serious than prosecuting people for child abuse, because the stakes are very high. You're talking about the safety of children, and we all feel very passionately about that. So I started out in my career doing that. I then took a detour onto the government side, and now I'm back to being a private practitioner advocating for parents in situations where they're accused of neglect, maltreatment, or child abuse. And I do find that there's a holism or a holistic perspective that comes from having been on the other side of the aisle. And I'm able to talk to clients and reassure them about their situation, because I kind of know what the government is looking for. And clients often need that reassurance that their lawyer knows what they're doing. So, Peter, I have a question for you. We didn't discuss this in our prep, so I hope this isn't a curveball. I'm a strong believer in client-centered representation, and I find that that holistic perspective entails listening to the client, finding out where they're at, and trying to be there for the client in all respects, and listening to their whole story and not filtering out things that might not be directly impactful to their criminal case. What's your idea about this philosophy of client-centered representation? That's something you agree with, or what's your opinion?
Well, I think that it's beyond something I agree with. I think it is the hallmark of good representation. The number one complaint against attorneys is their inadequate communication. And the reality of it is that clients find themselves, especially with what you do and with what I do, clients find themselves in remarkably stressful situations. Sometimes they don't communicate really well when they're in those very stressful situations, and sometimes they don't listen very well when they're in those remarkably stressful situations. So it bears repeating things often. Sometimes it could get frustrating, but you have to remember that your client, first of all, is the client, and second of all, they are in this very stressful situation that you deal with every day, right? You see people accused of abuse and neglect every day. For them, they've never been in this situation. They have so much at stake. And so being able to listen to them, being able to um, pay attention and make them feel like they have a sympathetic and competent ear is critical to what we do. Trusting the client needs to be able to trust their attorney. It's essential to what we do. And quite frankly, I think that it's so important to the client experience that we communicate as we go forward each step of the process with our clients, because they don't know what to expect, and we do.
Right. So I think what I'm hearing is that there's less of a difference between the practice of criminal law from as a defense lawyer and the practice of family law. A lot of lawyers that I know shy away from family law because it's, in their view, too messy, too full of gray areas and ambiguities. And they like criminal law better because in their minds, it's more black and white. You're either guilty or you're not guilty. And the way the criminal law functions in the courtroom seems to be more cut and dry. And any criminal practitioner will tell you as soon as they step into a family court room that suddenly all bets are off and it does seem a lot more confusing. But in fact, based on what you just said, I would disagree with that. And I would say that if you're a client-centered lawyer, then you're there for the client and their goals. And very often the goals of the individual client may not be what a person expects. So in my context, in a family law proceeding, each client has a unique story. Each client has a set of goals that need to be recognized. And there is no cookie cutter, right or wrong, black or white answer to a problem. Rather, it requires listening to the client in the client's entire reality of where the client sits. And I just had that happen the other day where I'm actually representing a client on her criminal matter, but in fact, to work with a client directly required getting into the client's reality and listening to the client's feelings and talking about things that were outside the confines of that particular matter. And the reason I know I'm good is because clients give me the feedback that I'm hearing them and they need to be heard, not only just paying lip service and saying, I'm sorry for what you're going through, but to try to connect the dots from what they're going through emotionally and what the legal problem is. So we can get from the beginning of the case where they're in trouble and they're in crisis to an end point where there's some kind of a goal that's achieved. So that's very reassuring to hear that you share that perspective is important. Peter, let's get back to some of the nitty gritty. You said you've had experience doing homicide work, firearms trafficking. That was some of the work you mentioned as a prosecutor. Tell us a little bit about what are your highlights today? What kind of work you focus on today from the defense perspective?
Well, we definitely follow through with a lot of the firearm stuff. We are what I believe to be the Second Amendment law firm for New York State. We are truly the premier Second Amendment law firm for New York State. We're involved with clients in every aspect of gun ownership, including licensing issues, appeals, Article 78 when those appeals fail. We represent clients in revocation and suspension hearings. We represent clients who are applying for pistol licenses when they have issues that may prevent them from getting a license. We represent people who are arrested for possession of either unlicensed guns or guns that are illegal under New York law. So we deal with essentially every aspect of gun ownership.
And what about a client outside of White Plains, Westchester? Because this video is going to be reaching people, obviously, in the capital region of Albany, but what about outside of those immediate areas? How far does your firm go, and what's your service area?
We go to the borders. Essentially, we represent people. We represent a lot of people who have out-of-state licenses and get caught at various borders. We represent people who get arrested at the airports with guns in New York City, LaGuardia and Kennedy airports. We represent people who get arrested at the Canadian border with guns. We've represented people as far as Buffalo, and we've also represented people who are coming across the northern Canadian border in Clinton County. So we literally go all over the state on these types of cases.
Okay. Now, since you mentioned the Second Amendment, unfortunately, the topic of guns is very political at this point in our country. And I want to be clear for myself. My name is Carl Birman. I could be reached at 518-952-0516. And Peter, what's your phone number in case people want to find you after today?
My phone number is 914-833-9785.
And you've also got a website, which is Peter Tilem,
which is tilemlawfirm.com. It's TILEM lawfirm, LAWFIRM.com. Okay. And I have another website, which we'll maybe talk about a little later, New York TAC Defense, NYTACdefense.com.
Yeah, so I want to get back to the TAC Defense website separately. First of all, just to be clear, by interviewing Peter today, I'm not taking a position on his legal work, and I think it would be safe to say no lawyer could take a specific position on any other lawyer's clientele, because the nature of legal practice is you take the clients as you find them, and we find clients who are very appealing and have very compelling stories, and we also have clients that are accused of horrible things, and they need the best possible defense that money can buy to repair their reputation and to ensure their freedom. And that's the beautiful thing about the American legal system, is everybody's entitled to a lawyer. I am proud to say that in my more than 15 years as a practitioner of criminal law and family law, I have expended an enormous amount of my time doing assigned work. So I get clients who are assigned to me by the court system, and these are clients who cannot afford me privately, or they cannot afford Peter Tilem, or they really just don't know where to turn because they're accused of something and they just don't know what their rights are. And the system will ensure that they get protection by giving them a lawyer free of charge. Because again, the beautiful thing about our system is everybody needs an advocate, and the system in New York State is there to ensure that if you're accused of a crime or you're dragged into court alleging child abuse, child maltreatment, or domestic violence, or anything else that requires legal representation, they will give you a lawyer if you don't hire your own private attorney. So those sound like really important issues, Peter. Have you had any recent successes either in the news or published decisions in that people could go look up from the appellate courts that you want to tell us about before we get to the TAC defense?
Well, actually, just yesterday we won a tremendous victory in the appellate division here in Manhattan. We had a client who was accused of bringing his gun from Massachusetts. He was licensed in Massachusetts to carry the gun, but did not have a license in New York, and so was charged with a felony as a result of having an unlicensed gun in New York. He was arrested back in 2016, actually, and we conducted in 2019 a suppression hearing that lasted 5 days. We called 2 witnesses. The prosecutor called 3 police witnesses. As I said, it went on for 5 days. The judge ruled against us, and the client pled guilty. But yesterday, that conviction was overturned, and the indictment was dismissed after the court ruled that the police were not authorized to engage in the conduct that they did in order to find my client's gun. The gun was suppressed, and the indictment was dismissed yesterday. So that was a big victory.
That's incredible. And what court was that yesterday? If people want to look
That
that
was
up.
in the First Department, the Appellate Division of the Supreme Court First Department. And we win a fair number of gun cases by getting guns suppressed. I guess about 18 months ago, we had a big case in Rockland County with many guns where all the guns were suppressed and the charges were dismissed against my client.
Interesting. And if people want to look that up, I guess you'll probably post that decision on your website or on, I think you said you have a Facebook page as well, right?
We have it on Facebook. We actually just posted a blog about it. We write a blog. We have well over 500, almost 600 blog posts. It's called NewYorkCriminalAttorneyBlog.com. I've been writing it for years, and we write on all kinds of topics pertaining to criminal law. But it is a voluminous blog, and we write about a lot of the gun issues that we encounter.
Very interesting. So one thing I always like to tell people, if they're considering picking up the phone to either myself or someone like Peter Tilem or any other lawyer that they come across in their research, is trust your gut, do your research, and don't make that decision to hire that lawyer until you've thought it through carefully. The choice of a lawyer is probably second only to the choice of an open heart surgeon. And you really entrust your life to your lawyer. And it has to be someone that you can communicate with and that you feel comfortable with. Too often I hear stories of people that are stuck with lawyers that did something that the client questioned. And again, having done a lot of appellate work, I have seen the negative deleterious effects of that. And it's quite unfortunate. And the way to avoid it is to do your research. Prior results don't guarantee future outcomes. My name is Carl Birman. I can be reached at area code 518-952-0516. I'm an attorney here in Schenectady, New York. My guest today, Peter Tilem, can be reached at
914-833-9785.
And I do apologize because unfortunately, like in our first try, we have a little bit of a lag. We're hearing Peter nice and clear, but the video is slightly behind. It's probably my fault. I have an older computer today. I need to ramp up my technology to meet the amazing power of the internet and all of this new media that has come about in the last few years. So Peter, you mentioned briefly, you have before you have a second website called New York or NY, is it NY Tax Defense or New York Tax Defense?
NY Tax Defense, nytacdefense.com.
And I know that stands for Tilem and Associates Carry. So that obviously has something to do with the right to carry firearms. And is that a law firm? Is that an insurance program? Is that a fee for service? Tell us a little bit about New York Tax Defense.
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. So it's very interesting. This was our project during lockdown, and it goes back to about 2 or 3 years ago. There was an insurance product that is available in most states. It's available in New Jersey. It was available in New York up until a couple of years back. And what it is an insurance product that provides insurance for people who own, possess, or carry firearms. And what it does is it covers the cost of a criminal defense attorney if, God forbid, a person is involved in a situation where they need to use that firearm in self-defense. Carl, you as an experienced criminal attorney knows that even if you're in the right, even if you use your firearm under the most legal circumstances, you will be the subject of a criminal investigation, a very serious criminal investigation, perhaps murder or attempted murder or assault in the first degree. And You could find yourself charged with one or more crimes, even felonies, even a charge like murder or attempted murder, and the legal fees could be exorbitant. And this insurance that was available in New York and is still available in most states covered the cost of that. But it was banned in New York just a couple of years ago, and a lot of people who had this insurance lost their insurance. And we sort of looked at this situation and we said, look, this is a need that people have. It was something that people wanted to have. It would be scary to be involved in a situation and not feel like you had someone in your corner. And I thought to myself, and we talked about it with some of the lawyers here, that we could provide this service, but not as an insurance product, because clearly that was thought to be illegal in New York, but as a prepaid legal service. So what we did was we set up a plan, and we have a website, and this could all be done online. It's subscription based. You pay $38.50 a month.
How
Or
much?
if you
How much?
$38.50 a month. Or if you subscribe on an annual basis, you get a discount. It's $385 a year. And in the event that you're involved in a self-defense shooting or a self-defense incident with any lawful weapon, we will come in and we will immediately represent you, and your representation will be covered by the fact that you are enrolled, that you are a prepaid legal service member of New York Tax Defense.
Very interesting. So of course, Peter, you're reaching an audience, including people in the Capital District of New York State. One thing I always marvel at, because I'm from downstate, my dad was born and raised in the Bronx. I grew up in New Rochelle, which is a suburb of New York City, really just 5 or 10 miles north of the Bronx. This is the kind of thing that makes sense from the downstate perspective. I'm curious what the reaction is to New York Tax Defense for people outside of the New York metro area. Is it popular among gun owners throughout the various regions of New York State? What has the response been?
The response has been really tremendous. I mean, sadly, and I say sadly because I think it's an important product. We're the only game in town. The product just doesn't exist in any other fashion, because every company that tried to come in and fill the void was thrown out because insurance products are not allowed to provide the service in New York. So we've gotten a tremendous response, and we have clients from the Buffalo area. We have clients from the North region. We have clients from the cities, and we have clients.
And it's legitimate. In other words, obviously you wouldn't have the website up, and you wouldn't, as a practicing attorney, be able to market and advertise this unless it passed muster with all the powers that be in New York State. So nothing you're doing is running afoul of a law or regulation to be able to offer this service, correct?
That was very important to me. Obviously, you know me, I'm a practicing lawyer with a reputation among the judges and the practitioners here in New York. I've been doing this for 30 years. And one of the most important things for me was not jeopardizing my law practice in order to do this, but instead to have it supplement my law practice. And the reality was that there was a lot of thought and research that went into this. We actually decided that we wanted this to be very transparent. We put our client retainer agreement right on our website. It's not behind any kind of paywall. Anyone can review it. We cite to some ethics opinions that explain the type of fee arrangement and why it's permissible. And we want everyone, including regulators, to understand our thought process when we went forward with this. I think I mentioned that these insurance companies were thrown out of New York several years ago, but this was our lockdown project. The truth of the matter is, well, we had the idea years ago.
So wait. Let me interrupt. When you say it's your lockdown project, I mean, we're airing this interview today on March 31st, 2021. And I don't need to remind our audience that we're just coming out of COVID type lockdowns. So when did you actually roll out this new website and this new business?
So our first day was June 1st.
June 1st of what? Of 2020.
2020.
So it's less than a year old. It's very new.
It's less than a year old, and it's been wildly successful. But we took that period when the courts were closed and the law firms were closed, and we were literally locked in our houses to build out the website and to build out, I think, the most the most time, the most time sensitive issue. And I guess what really took the most time was building out the client retainer agreement, because essentially what you're doing is you're retaining my law firm and prepaying for our services. So we needed to define exactly what you were getting for your money. And as I mentioned, we put that up on our website so everyone can review it
Yeah.
prior to signing up.
Great. So let me just say a couple of things in closing. This is absolutely fascinating stuff. I am not a political person. My name is Carl Birman. I can be reached at 518-952-0516. I'm an appellate attorney. I work with individual clients and I steer as far away as possible from political controversy. However, this is a fascinating topic. It's been in the news. Tragically, there's been mass shootings both in Atlanta and in Colorado in the last month that have stirred passionate debate and thinking amongst the public, as they should, as they properly should. What Peter Tilem is discussing today is interesting and provocative. What I would welcome to my viewers today is comments in the comments section. This video is accessible on my YouTube channel. It is accessible on my LinkedIn, and there'll be a link to it on my Twitter and my Facebook. Please do not be shy about posting your thoughts, provided there's no epithets or there's no inappropriate language. I welcome your feedback, both positive, negative, or of any nature, because even if you don't need a lawyer for these issues, even if this is not something that has any bearing on your life, and mind you, I'm not a gun owner myself, so I don't think I would ever need Peter's services. It's a topic that in America we can all talk about. The beautiful thing about America is that we do have these freedoms to debate and talk about who we are as a people and what our Constitution allows us to do. So this is just a wonderful, wonderful educational discussion to be having on a Wednesday afternoon. I'm very blessed that Peter Tilem gave us some time this afternoon to share his thoughts. I would also invite you to pick up the phone and call Peter's office directly at 914. What's that number?
833. It's 914-833-9785.
9785. Or you go to his website.
It's tilemlawfirm.com, and we're discussing our prepaid legal service, which is nytaxdefense.com.
So you'll probably find those sites pretty easily, because if you're watching this on Peter's YouTube channel or Facebook, there's going to be a link right there. So feel free to follow up and do your research and your education and express yourself, because the beautiful thing in America is that we can all express our minds. And that's essentially what this blog is. It's just a chance for me to showcase what I do and to offer a platform for colleague attorneys. My next guest, probably next week, is a lawyer that I've worked with about as long as I've known Peter Tilem, because Peter and I have known each other from Westchester for about 15 years. And her name is Christina T. Hall Ellis. She's quite active on Facebook. She's a very, very busy family and criminal lawyer. She's legit. She's a very hardworking lawyer. And I'm very excited to have her back next week. And I'm just excited to roll out this video blog, because it's the wave of the future. So thank you so much for stopping by. I hope everyone is enjoying their day, or whenever this reaches you, if it's later in the week, that you're enjoying the remainder of your week. I hope you have an enjoyable holiday. If you're celebrating Easter or taking some time off because of the Easter holidays, I hope it's a relaxing and fun time with your family. Spring is coming, the flowers are blooming, and feel free to call me, Carl Birman, at 518-952-0516, or my cell phone, 914-216